Coming to you from the mobile Hudson Media Group studio right here in the Uribe compound, this is Talking Politics, and I am the professor, Fernando Uribe. There's a lot to discuss, so let's get started. Here's what I'm thinking about right now. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take this opportunity to pay considerable respect and just homage to perhaps what I would call the dean of New Jersey journalism, and that is indeed Michael Aaron. Now, as reported this week via NJTV, their chief political correspondent, Michael Aaron, will indeed step down from his daily role reporting to focus on weekly special contributions to the network's weeknight newscast, NJTV News. Now, Michael Aaron, who has been known in many circles around the state as the dean of the State House Press Corps from his decades-long career covering New Jersey politics, will also periodically appear as a guest on NJTV's YouTube version of Reporters Roundtable, transitioning from his former role as anchor of that series and contribute insight and interviews to other news specials. Most immediately, though, he is focusing on the recent primary that just took place here in the state of New Jersey as it pertains to interviewing candidates all throughout the state. Now, Michael Aaron, in a statement released last week, said, quote, "I've reached a point in my life and my career when it's time for me to rein in my focus and energy. I have loved what I do, and I am grateful for the chance to keep on doing it. I look forward to more personal time between assignments." Now, according to NJTV's senior managing editor, Jamie Kraft, very simply, Michael Aaron is a New Jersey political icon. We are privileged and honored that his reporting to NJTV News and Reporters Roundtable will continue. His knowledge and context on state politics is unrivaled. We'll continue to share him with our audience for as long as he is willing. Now, Michael Aaron has been an award-winning journalist since 1970, contributing to very esteemed national and local outlets such as Harper's Magazine, Rolling Stone, and New Jersey Monthly. He's also served as the chief political correspondent for public television for 38 years, both at NJTV News and the former New Jersey News Network. Now, Michael Aaron has interviewed every New Jersey governor thus far, every state Supreme Court justice, and legislative leaders during his tenure, plus a number of presidential candidates. He's also covered national political conventions, trade missions abroad, and all major political issues going on in the state of New Jersey. So I can't say enough about how happy I am that Michael Aaron will be, focusing his energies on maybe different projects and not going with sort of the daily grind that he's endured for so long on NJTV. But let me say this, though, on a personal level, because I got to know Michael Aaron for the last few years. I've had the opportunity to interview him on my Insider NJ podcast, Politically Direct, and I've also had the opportunity to appear on multiple occasions on Reporters Roundtable. And I can't tell you, when I got that phone call from the editorial desk notifying me that Michael Aaron wanted me on Reporters Roundtable, I'll tell you something. Thank God I was sitting down, because if I wasn't, who knows? But I'll tell you, it was such an honor and privilege to be on Reporters Roundtable with him. Just to sit in the same room and interact with Michael Aaron was indeed an honor. And on those appearances, I'll always cherish them because, again, it reminds me of how far I've come along in media. And without a doubt, when we talk about journalism in today's form, whether it be online or sort of in traditional print media, which seems to be going extinct, Michael Aaron has been the standard bearer for decades here in the state of New Jersey. And just to sort of quote Nike many, many moons ago, when they had a marketing campaign, very simply to sell sneakers, they were telling kids everywhere, be like Mike. Of course, Michael Jordan was the icon of basketball, and many still regard him as the greatest of all time. But when it comes to journalism in New Jersey, I will argue that Michael Aaron is the greatest of all time. So when it comes to Nike's slogan, you know what? I'm going to have to borrow it right now, because you know what? When it comes to the type of journalist I want to be, and the type of journalist that I'm seeking to become here in the state of New Jersey, not just here with this program, but other media platforms that I host, you know what? I want to be like Mike. And I'm hoping to do that for the foreseeable future. Once again, congratulations to Michael Aaron. It's a long and overdue rest for you. And I know you'll stay busy because you're very active in New Jersey politics, but it'll be great to see you on TV once again in a contributing role and, of course, in other projects that you'll be engaging in. And undoubtedly, ladies and gentlemen, Michael Aaron, I would argue, is on the Mount Rushmore of journalism here in New Jersey. As a matter of fact, he probably needs the whole mountain for himself because that's how great Michael Aaron has been. Once again, to Michael Aaron and his family, congratulations. Even though it's a semi-retirement, I know you're going to stay very visible and very active in our political scene because we need honest and very trustworthy journalists like you on a daily basis. Michael, thanks again, and thanks for being an inspiration to all of us and an example about what a journalist should be. As I said earlier, I know Nike had their slogan for Michael Jordan, but I'll have it for Michael Aaron. I just want to be like Mike. And that's what I'm thinking about right now. In the latest edition of the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, which you can listen to live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson, was the distinguished Assemblywoman from the 32nd Legislative District, Miss Angelica Jimenez. We spoke for over an hour on a variety of different topics, and here are some highlights for your consideration. First and foremost, we discussed the impact COVID-19 had on her personally since testing positive for it in early March. Without a doubt, it was a very difficult time for not only her, but her family during this pandemic.
So how are you, Assemblywoman? Because I know that the last few months have been rough for you specifically because we know that early in the news cycle, once COVID started dominating the news feed, we know that you did indeed test positive for COVID. Thankfully, we are happy to hear that you've made a great recovery, that you're also healthy. But for our listeners tonight that maybe aren't aware of what that experience was like, because we've heard of people testing positive on COVID right in our news feeds. We've seen mayors and the governor talk about positive cases, but when it hits home, when someone you know personally, like I've lost classmates of mine from high school that due to COVID, and I've lost other people that I know because of COVID, it hits you hard when you personally know people, more so when they're able to survive like yourself. What was that experience like that you can share with our audience?
Well, something, it was pretty scary. I consider myself a very healthy person. I've worked in healthcare since 1986, and, I get my flu shot every year, as most of us do, that work in that healthcare setting. That's part of our yearly part of our routine. But I normally don't get sick. I don't suffer from seasonal allergies or anything like that. And it was, it was pretty, it was scary because my symptoms were different than other people's symptoms. My son is a police officer in our town, and he was sick also. He got sick. I think he got sick before I did, and I felt that his symptoms were a lot different than my symptoms. I felt more of a chest tightness. It was just very different, and it was scary as being like I'm a single mom, so. I've got my son, that's an adult, he's a grown man, but of course he lives with us. But I've got my 14-year-old daughter, so I was scared. I was scared because I was still working because, I typically worked until I got diagnosed. I didn't know because in the beginning, I was basically asymptomatic. The day that my son's test came back positive, that Sunday, I'll never forget because my physician told me, Angie, you need to get tested now. And he called the hospital and he arranged, because in the beginning they were not testing everybody. And I was basically asymptomatic. I was going to work. And I was experiencing, was I tired? Yes, but I'm always running around. I keep a very busy schedule. So, my biggest thing was a little fatigue, very, very bad headache, which, in the beginning they were saying that I remember clearly, and it's going to be interesting, Fernando, the studies that are going to come out of this, and I do hope, I look at things on the scientific aspect, and I do hope that they, and I'm assuming that they must be looking at the scientific part, because I clearly remember I clearly remember having a really bad headache for a good month before I was diagnosed. Every day. And I am a migraine sufferer, but these were not migraines.
Okay.
It was just, it was really very interesting. I remember waking up in the morning, and I was going to work, waking up with the same headache and going to bed with the same headache. I would take a leave. I'm an Aleve person. Take 2 Aleves, Papa Aleves, go have the headache. I said, maybe it's just the stress of everything that was going on
Sure.
because of the fear, that was happening. I remember that that was not part of the symptoms. I remember that they were saying, oh, a runny nose. I had a bit of a runny nose. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any coughing. That was also not part of the symptoms. But I remember my doctor said, Angie, you need to get tested that Sunday. I got tested on a Sunday. My results came back on Tuesday, and they were positive. I mean, immediately, the Sunday that my son got tested, his results came back. I quickly, that day, I called my employer, and I notified everybody, of course, I was going to quarantine, because he was positive. And then, of course, I got tested, and then the rest is history. As soon as my test results came back, which were relatively pretty quick, within 2 days, and then immediately I remember just that pressure. It was a very, very deep pressure, and just the fevers weren't as bad. But then everybody in my house got sick afterwards, and I noticed, I want to say the men, my boyfriend got sick. He was had high fevers, extremely high fevers. My son had really high fevers. I didn't have much of a high fever. The only person in my house, luckily, that did not get sick and has no antibody is my 14-year-old daughter, thank God.
Wow.
So, I mean, that's which is interesting, this is a lot of science to this. So I'm assuming, and it's fascinating because we would assume, because we all share the same bathroom, and my mother-in-law, well, my boyfriend's mom that lives with us, she was sent home to die. She was literally sent home to die. She's 89 years old. She's got severe Alzheimer's, and she was that sick. So, I mean, we had to get a hospital bed for her. She miraculously, I think, because she was home, and by this was like towards the end of my being sick. I was physically, getting over being sick, but I was taking care of her.
Sure.
And, everybody was basically, we were all on lockdown. But she made it. She survived it. She forgot. I mean, she's got severe Alzheimer's, like I said, but
Sure.
She forgot how to walk. She forgot how to eat. Everything was via like droppers and like little syringes, filled with the medicine. And I mean, it was really hard. It was hard. So, but it was because, I mean, she was home with us that she was able to make it. But it was really scary. I was just blessed that that we were able to come out of it.
Secondly, we address the difficulties that legislators are having about the state budget. As we're aware, legislators have been meeting virtually to discuss the budget, which isn't due until later this fall. Let's check out what she had to say about it.
I know that going into January, it's a number I've talked about on my other programs that I host, and here's a number that should freak everybody out in New Jersey, because in 2004, then Governor Jim McGreevey submitted a budget to the legislature of $21 billion. Now, 15 years later, the governor would introduce a budget, which, again, pre-COVID, the legislature had to sit down and dissect and go over and see what they can agree upon. But the budget that the governor had submitted was $43 billion. So we're talking about literally double in 16 years. Now, there's a few variables here. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I'm teaching an economics course, but, there are some variables here, inflation, other things that the state goes through with spending. But the bottom line is that we know the governor pre-COVID was getting a little bit of heat about this budget, which really seems like it ballooned again a little bit from the previous fiscal year. Was there anything in the budget that you saw COVID? Again, I'm sure at some point you're going to have to sit down with your colleagues and go through it again before it gets signed in October. Was there anything in the budget that concerned you that maybe we were spending too much on, or not enough, or not spending enough on?
Well, I'll be honest with you. A lot of our social programs, we're going to have to we're going to lose programs, Fernando, and and now, post-COVID, we're going to have to really look at some of our programs and where the money needs to go, where it isn't going. It's gonna hurt a lot of our programs, especially in I think the districts that need it the most. It's just going to be really hard. My biggest concern is, honestly, I know this virtual learning. I know for my daughter, she hated it. To me, I shouldn't say this, but it almost seems like it was a year lost.
Okay.
I know that a lot of our kids, my 14-year-old, I was very lucky she's 14. But my concern is, the education of kids that are in those foundations, those basic years that they're learning how to read. They're learning their basic skills in math. Okay. We have in my district parents, sometimes they're single moms or single dads, or parents that are working. Yes, during the COVID crisis, these are parents. The parents don't know how to teach their kids. They don't have the time. Some parents don't have the computers. I was lucky enough in our district, they were given Chromebooks. I don't know if the younger ones were, though. I can't speak for that. In West New York, we're pretty lucky. But I don't know. I can't honestly say that the kids that are in the second grade or third grade had a need for that. But I don't know how they were taught. But I have concerns with that, Fernando. I have concerns that coming into that with this budget, that because we're going to need to have enough money in there for a lot of social programs. We're going to need education. We have a lot of catching up to do.
Overall, it was a very informative episode, and you can listen to it in its entirety by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/Talking the Hudson. These are the exclusives I'll continue to get for you every single week on Blog Talk Radio. Now check out these local stories. Starting off in the Moscow city of Hoboken, where Police Chief Ken Ferrante is accusing the city council of playing politics with his new contract. Now, just to give you a little bit of a background here, and a nice job by Terry West with the Jersey Journal for her report on this story. Now, Hoboken Police Chief Ken Ferrante's contract is up for approval and will put him on track to make a whopping $206,000 annually by 2021, which is indeed $44,000 more than his salary when he was hired in 2014. But the city council in a recent vote decided to eliminate 5 of his vacation days and terminate the new contract in conjunction with the end of Mayor Ravi Bala's first term. Moves that Police Chief Ken Ferrante is accusing the city council of being as, quote, petty. It looks like they're politicizing my position, the police chief said, noting that he did not take a raise last year or this year despite being eligible, instead requesting his vacation days get bumped from 20 to 30 days. Now, the extremes of the political discourse between pro-Bala and anti-Bala is a microcosm of what we see with President Trump and the Democrats today, he said. The police chief and the police department should not be pulled into this political battle. Now, Ferrante's starting salary in 2014 was $162,000 and has increased every year except 2019. On 2 separate occasions, his salary increased by more than $10,000 in a single year, which he was compensated for him, making less than the city's fire chief and even some of his own captains. And in 2018, he joined a handful of New Jersey police chiefs who make more than $200,000 a year. Now, New Jersey law enforcement officers are the third highest paid of any state in the U.S., according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and data that was produced in 2019. Now, his new contract initially sought to increase his annual vacation time from 20 to 30 days, but the City Council wants to modify it to only 25 days. The Council also requested that the contract expire at the end of 2021 instead of 2022. Now, Councilwoman Tiffany Fisher said the following: "We're not suggesting not to keep him on forever. We're just suggesting that at this moment of time, when this is being put up in the middle of a budget process, that this is what I'd recommend for a change." Now, Police Chief Ken Ferrante said he is now considering multiple options, including whether to accept the council's changes, request that they be reversed, or reconsider how long he wants to remain as Hoboken's police chief. Now, beyond the salary, though, there are a few differences between Ferrante's initial contract and the new one under consideration. His previous contract allowed him to cash out up to 40 vacation days upon retirement. Under his new contract, that number would indeed increase to 60. He also has a $300 increase in his annual clothing allowance, which will give him a $1,300 annual amount to spend on work clothes, which could be a uniform or business attire, according to the contract. Now, his contract guarantees a $5,000 raise next year, and another $5,000 raise was included for 2022. But the council wants the contract to expire before then. Even upon the contract's expiration, the city can renew it on a year-by-year basis, while providing at least a 1.5% salary raise. Now, the same language was written into his first contract. Folks, let me say this, and I know that police practices and police reform is a hot topic right now in our political climate, but when you look at some of these whopping salaries, and listen, I don't want to say anything disparaging against Police Chief Ken Ferrante. He's always been a gentleman to me in the brief interactions I've ever had with him, going to City Hall in my capacity as a journalist to try to speak with him. So he's always been very cool with me, and a guy that's been very transparent in wanting to talk to the public, and especially more importantly, the press. But when we look at sort of these astronomical salaries, especially during a time like this, when, let's be honest, not only is the state budget under scrutiny, but municipal budgets all over the state are under scrutiny as well, especially because of COVID-19. And when we're seeing, civil servants making high six figures, I mean, for a lot of us who are struggling to make our mortgage payments, to pay back our student loans, or just to simply even make a car payment every month, these are numbers that are not going to sit well with every single person. Now, again, I don't have the easy answer to what the solution will be, but the idea that Police Chief Ferrante shares the same high salary as other police chiefs throughout the state, well, that comes under some scrutiny. Okay, there's no question that Hoboken, as a city itself, has a lot of volume, and certainly the brave men and women in the Hoboken Police Department do a very good job in keeping the city safe. But the problem is that when we talk about these high salaries for police chiefs, we start talking about some of their, suburban counterparts. And there are some parts in New Jersey, folks, in some of these municipalities where you have police chiefs making $200,000 to almost $300,000 a year in relatively quiet towns. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not acceptable to me. And no, that doesn't make me anti-cop. That doesn't make me someone that's disparaging the police. What that's making me is someone who's concerned about fiscal management in these towns. Now, again, if a police chief who's already making almost $200,000 a year goes a year or two without a raise because the city has to sort of, buckle its pants and maybe squeeze a little bit more out of the municipal budget, then so be it. I'm not going to cry a river here for anybody who's making that sort of salary. And I don't think anybody else in my position would either. But I'll keep you posted in the weeks and months ahead about this story, folks, because it seems like Police Chief Ken Ferrante and Hoboken and the City Council are on a collision course. Now, who wins in this case remains to be seen, but nevertheless, in the end, it could be the taxpayers that get the ultimate loss because they're flipping the bill for such a salary. And now let's move to Jersey City, where U.S. Representative Albio Ceres talked recently with Hudson County View's John Highness on a multitude of different topics as it pertained to the results of primary day and also why he's being called out to have town halls when he doesn't feel it's necessary to. Let me just give you some details here, and a great job once again by John Highness with the Hudson County View for his report on this story. Now, one of the things that the U.S. representative out of the 8th Congressional District up here in Hudson County was very adamant about was the idea that town halls were not necessary. As we all know, during this primary season, he was being heckled by his progressive challenger, Hector Oseguera. Now, again, no offense to Hector, who I know has had a lot to say about myself and others in Hudson County's political scene, but without a doubt, the congressman was wise to not have town halls, because more times than not, ladies and gentlemen, what ends up happening is it gets hijacked by very vocal and at times very rambunctious individuals. Now, I'm not accusing that his progressive challenger would do such a thing, but we know that many of his supporters would do that. As we all know, many liberals and progressives like to be very loud at town halls, either for just the camera or just to have their voices heard, which is fine. I'm not trying to crush any dissent, but as we all know, U.S. Representative Sears is very transparent. You can go to his office, you can call to make an appointment, and he will see you. He has seen me, he's seen multiple other people that I know. So the idea that Albio Sears is not a transparent public servant, and he's not a transparent and honorable member of Congress, I just think would be blatantly dishonest, because as we all know, he's very receptive to seeing people at his office, and he will meet with his constituents on a regular basis. I understand some people might say, well, a town hall is necessary. It gives the public a chance to interact with the congressman in a sort of a formal Q&A setting. But as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, you just simply go to YouTube and you know what these town halls turn into. They become almost like a battle royal. Now listen, I'm a big WWE fan and I love pro wrestling like the next person. But you know what? When you look at these town halls, they oftentimes get a little out of control. And that's something that the congressman just isn't receptive to. And I don't blame him. He's looking to talk to his constituents, but not in sort of a no-holds-barred free-for-all, which again, many of these town hall type of events turn into. So again, as results are still not official, there's a very good chance, basically folks, a 99.9% chance, that U.S. Representative Sears will indeed win the primary here in Hudson County and will go on to November to run for his seat once again in the general election on November the 3rd. We'll keep you posted in the weeks and months ahead here as to whether or not the congressman continues to get heckled or even, vilified on social media as it pertains to his reluctance on town halls or anything else. But as we all know, folks, when it comes to transparency, that's Albio Sears. I know it firsthand, and I know many of you do too.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.
And that's our show for this week. To check out all the excellent programming brought to you by the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air, please go to their websites, www.hmgtvshows.com, www.livestream.com/hmgtv, and www.njonair.com. Don't forget to like the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air on Facebook and follow them both on Instagram and Twitter. And live every Wednesday night at 9 p.m., you can always listen to the 3-time award-winning podcast, Talking the Hudson, by going to www.blogtalkradio.com/talkingthehudson. And never forget, if it's unbiased, unfiltered, and unafraid, you know it's always talking politics right here with the Hudson Media Group and NJ On Air. I'm Fernando Uribe. Thank you so much for watching.
Don't forget to catch Fernando's podcast at blogtalkradio.com/talkonthehudson. New episodes available every Wednesday night at 9 p.m.